What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel. And I know, while the college football content is back, I am way behind the eight ball on probably a lot of the videos that I'm going to be uploading here over the next couple of weeks. But nonetheless, I still want to give my thoughts and opinions on everything that has happened around the college football world. And we're going to start out with reviewing all, I believe it's somewhere in the ballpark of 27 to 31 coaching hires that have been made. The exact number is slipping my mind, but it is a pretty sizable margin as the coaching carousel was pretty rampant here. You had a lot of surprise retirements. Some guys leave their programs, some guys go professional, and we're now starting to see the sort of impact of guys wanting to leave the college game. All of these guys I'm about to talk about want to be in the college game, and I'm going to be giving you my thoughts and opinions on every single hire that has happened. Again, just my personal opinions. I recognize that some people's opinions may be different than others. We'll see which one of these opinions comes back to burn me later, because knowing college football, it will happen. Before we dive on into the video, though, you guys know how to support the channel, but in case you don't, and well, in case you're new to the platform or new to the channel, big way to do that, hit the subscribe button down there. And really, anything that you do to help support the channel does mean a lot to me, whether you like, you comment, you share. Just grow the channel as big as it can go. That's all I ask of you guys. Appreciative of whatever support you are willing to give. And hey, watching the video is another huge way to support, and I'm not going to waste any more of your guys' time. I am not going to necessarily give each coaching hire a letter grade. However, what I am going to do is sort of categorize them. I have some home run hires that I want to talk about first, all the way up until the coaching hires that are probably going to need to prove themselves a little bit more for me to fully believe that they are a good fit for that program. So nonetheless, let's go ahead and start off. I have them sorted out by group of five and power five as well, more like the power four now with the Pac-12 not or I should say with the Pac-12 more or less disbanding. We're going to start out with my home run hires in my Power Four. So these are your conferences like the Big 12, Big 10, SEC, and the ACC. I got three of them right here. You could give any of these a letter grade from A plus to A. That's kind of where I see them. Again, I'm not going to give them an exact letter grade. If you wanted to, that's just kind of the margin, and you'll see that for every single tier. And they might change a little bit compared to Power 4 and Group of 5 as well. But we're going to start out with what I believe to be one of the biggest home run hires across any division that has been made, and that is Willie Fritz going over to Houston, taking over for Dana Holgerson. You just look at what Willie Fritz has done the past couple years at Tulane. He's been there since 2016, has a plus 500 record, but is 23-4 in his last 2 years. They were American Athletic Champions in 2022, then went on to win the Cotton Bowl against USC, two-time American Athletic Coach of the Year. Willie Fritz has been a guy that's bounced around a little bit. He has had a stint at Georgia Southern as well, but again, mostly known for this run here that he has had at Tulane. And Willie Fritz is a fantastic mind offensively, defensively, and Houston really does need a coach that's going to succeed in fighting a tough battle, right? Houston, again, while Willie Fritz taking over for Dana Holgerson, I believe this is a full home run hire because Willie Fritz is the guy that's going to fight through these tough battles. Probably going to have a couple rough years at Houston to start out. However, sooner than later, believe it or not, I do believe Willie Fritz will have the Cougars in a bowl game. And with this new look Big 12, watch out for the Houston Cougars with Willie Fritz at the helm. I think this is a slam dunk home run hire. I love Willie Fritz coming over from Tulane to coach at Houston. Can't wait to see what he does with the Houston Cougars. That is my first home run hire of the video. And the next one, well, we're actually going to skip the one in the middle because that one's pretty obvious to a lot of people. I want to talk about Jonathan Smith. I think this is another home run hire here for Michigan State. And not only for Jonathan Smith, he only boasts a 34-35 career record, all of that being at Oregon State, but he's 18-7 over the last 2 years, has been very, very competitive with a lot of the top talent that we have seen in the Pac-12 conference over the past couple of seasons. Of course, now with Oregon State going in dependent and with Jonathan Smith more so proving himself, he walks into, well, let's be honest, a really dicey situation with Michigan State. There was a lot of drama surrounding that former head coach in Mel Tucker, but I do think that this is a slam dunk home run hire. Now, I know there are a lot of varying opinions on Jonathan Smith. You either love this hire or you're going to kind of wait to see if he can prove himself within the Big Ten Conference. Do I think he's going to have Michigan State competing for a Big Ten title? Not necessarily right out of the gate. I do think Michigan State can sort of rise back up to the height that Mark D'Antonio had this program at, and I think Jonathan Smith is the guy to do it. You look at what his Oregon State teams were. They were physical. They were going to out-hit you, and that's exactly what Michigan State is going to need to prepare and compete with the teams like Ohio State and Penn State and Michigan, and even some of the newcomers like Washington and Oregon. And if Lincoln Riley's whole defensive game plan works out, maybe even USC as well. Jonathan Smith was co-Pac-12 Coach of the Year in 2022. He was also an offensive coordinator at UW when Chris Peterson was that head coach. So if that tells you something, Chris Peterson thinks pretty highly of this guy, one of the best head coaches to ever do it. That's a slam dunk home run hire for me. And I don't have to talk about this one much longer. Kalen DeBoer coming over from Washington to the University of Alabama, taking over for Nick Saban. He has a 104-12 career record. This guy is just a pure winner. There's no other way to describe him. He was 25-3 at Washington, made a college football national championship game. Again, of course, losing to the Michigan Wolverines last year. Three-time NAIA champion with Sioux Falls, a team that is now in the conference of the school where I go to college, but just a fun little side note. Three-time NAIA champs. He has been five-time Coach of the Year. He was three-time Coach of the Year at USF, all the years that they won NAIA champions. He was also two-time Coach of the Year at UW, and I believe that all of those were within their own conference, but they were also nationally with Sioux Falls. And last year, he was AP and AFCA Coach of the Year. And this guy's just a pure winner, and he inherits a very good situation here at Alabama. Now, I know he's not Nick Saban. You shouldn't really expect him to be Nick Saban either. Now, Kalen DeBoer is a winner, and while I think the Alabama dynasty may not fully continue to as dominant of a run as Nick Saban had, the Alabama dynasty is still going to be there. Alabama is still going to be atop of the SEC in a lot of metrics, and Kalen DeBoer is going to be a big reason why. Has a very fun roster, has a very talented roster. You know that with a guy like Kalen DeBoer, where all he does is win, Alabama's going to be right back on top of the SEC. That's as easy as a home run hire as a home run hire gets. So there are my three home run hires in the Power Four. We'll move on into the Group of Five realm, where I have three more home run hires, and we're actually going to start with the one that is right below me here. This one I'm just kind of taking a chance on. The first two, no doubt, are home run hires, but trying to find a third definitely can seem a little bit tricky because you could have questions about Bronco Mendenhall. Does he still have the sort of does he still have the what is the word that I am looking for? Does he still have the motivation to go coach? Does he still have the motivation to go win? I mean, you take a look at Bronco Mendenhall, and even though the overall records are not super telling, 99-43 at BYU, they were two-time Mountain West champions, and he was Mountain West Coach of the Year in 06, one of the years where BYU, while they were still in the Mountain West, went and won that conference. When he was at Virginia, they made an ACC championship game at Virginia, a football program not known for having a huge run of success. He went there and he won for a little bit, and in a lot of what a lot of people would consider a surprise move, the Virginia did fire Bronco Mendenhall back in 2021. Now, this guy I do not believe has been in the coaching game since. He inherits a situation at New Mexico where, look, that's a program that has improved in the past couple of seasons, and give Bronco some time. He knows the Mountain West landscape. He knows what it takes to win in that conference, albeit it looks a little bit different since he was there last. However, this is a guy coming into a situation with New Mexico I think can compete really, really well in the Mountain West Conference. Bronco, again, while the records may not show it, is a true winner, and I think you'll see New Mexico be competing in the Mountain West for at least as long as Bronco Mendenhall is there. So again, that's the one that I'm kind of taking a shot at. The other two I don't have to talk for as long because I don't need to tell you guys why they are home run hires. They kind of speak for themselves. We'll start with the one in the middle. That's John Summerall. He's coming over from Troy to take over for Willie Fritz, who we just talked about going over to Houston. He is now at Tulane, and much like Willie Fritz going to Houston, well, Tulane's going to have another great coach on their hands. John Summerall is a very, very good coach, a very good defensive-minded coach as well, and he does have a connection to the university. He was a former Tulane co-defensive coordinator from 2012 to 2014, Sun Belt Coach of the Year in 2022, two-time Sun Belt champs at Troy. Again, the only 2 seasons he has been a head coach has been at Troy, and you look at what his teams are: hard hitting, pounding. They will be tougher than you. They will be more physical than you. That's exactly what Tulane is going to need after missing out on Willie Fritz, who's just a naturally tough guy, right? I believe that John Sumrall is a great hire for this program, and he will fit in really, really well with the Tulane Green Wave, and he'll fit in well in the American Athletic Conference. This is another really easy home run hire for me. That's Bob Chesney. If you don't follow the FCS game as much, he was the most recent head coach at Holy Cross, and he is going to be taking over for Curt Cignetti at James Madison. We'll talk more about Curt Cignetti and where he is landing later, but this guy boasts a 111-46 career record, made the FCS quarterfinals in 2022, and has built Holy Cross into one of the more premier and dominant FCS programs, maybe not in terms of going to win a national title, but you know that Holy Cross is going to be right at the top of the FCS rankings for at least as long as Bob Chesney was there. He inherits a situation at James Madison where, look, they were a very dominant program in the FCS ranks. They come over to the FBS, and some people are thinking, oh, it's going to take them time to adjust. Oh, they need to take that step up in competition. Nope, not at all. James Madison clearly easily adjusted to that next level, and I think Bob Chesney is a great candidate to be able to take over. If you want to talk about my highest graded hire probably of the entire cycle, it's probably going to be that one right there. I absolutely love this move. I love it for Bob Chesney. I love it for James Madison. You take a look at the list of accolades that he has down there. He was FCS Region 1 Coach of the Year. Bob Chesney going to James Madison is a slam dunk home run in my book. That's all I got for the home run hires. We're going to move on to some guys that, look, they're still very good hires. They're a great fit. They will succeed. Maybe some minor questions. We're going to start out with the Power Four. Who else do you have to start with here but the guy that really helped Michigan to go win a national title, and that is Sherrone Moore. Boasts a 4-0 career record while filling in for Harbaugh as the interim head coach. He was the Michigan co-OC and primary offensive coordinator from 2021 to 2023. He was a Broyles Award finalist last year, and in my opinion, and not only my opinion, but a lot of other people's opinion as well, really was the obvious choice for the job. As soon as Jim Harbaugh went and took that job for the Los Angeles Chargers, I don't think Michigan had to look very far to find their new guy. The passion, the energy, and everything that Sherrone Moore coaches with is something that is outstanding to watch. Unfortunately, it helped him and his Michigan Wolverines beat my Ohio State Buckeyes, but it also helped them beat Maryland and Penn State. And early on in the year, when Jim Harbaugh was serving his suspension, that he had 3 different guys coach games, one of them being Sherrone Moore, and I believe he was the head coach of the game against East Carolina, or at least the acting head coach at that time. He moves from his offensive coordinator role into being the head coach of this program, and I could not find any better fit for Michigan to go out. I think they have their guy. We'll see how well Sherrone Moore is able to take that next step, right? Because he's already won big games. Now, with a roster that loses a lot of key pieces, how well can he keep this squad together? The players love him. The administration loves him. I think Sherrone Moore will succeed immensely well and still keep Michigan a college football playoff contender. I think this is a great fit. He will succeed. He will do some great things for the University of Michigan. That is Sherrone Moore. We'll move on over just right beside him here. Apologies for, well, you can't see that notification. Notification popped up on my screen, didn't pop up there on my recording software. If you did see it, I apologize. But we'll move over and we'll talk about Jedd Fisch. You want to talk about a guy that has built a program. I mean, he may only be 17 and 22 in his coaching career, but he took an Arizona team in 2021 that went 1-11 to last year being one of the most surprising teams in college football. And not only that, he left Arizona off in a very good situation. Now, we'll talk about the hire that Arizona has made later in this video, but Jedd Fisch is going to go succeed Kalen DeBoer at Washington. That's going to be a very tough ask to. Again, just to reiterate, 1-11 to 10-3 in really 2 seasons. Well, 3 seasons, including the year that he went 1-11. But that is impeccable. That is a great work, especially at a program like Arizona that for the longest time was kind of hovering right around that borderline top 10, borderline top 15 program. And immediately sank back down to the bottom of the Pac-12 ranks. Jedd Fisch really built them back up and has really left them off in an incredible situation. But coming into a situation at Washington, the only reason that I don't see this as a home run slam dunk hire, not because I doubt Jedd Fisch. I think Jedd Fisch is going to do very well at Washington, but there are a couple things working against him. One, Washington has to take a step up in competition going to play in the Big Ten Conference. And two, Kalen DeBoer did not necessarily leave that program in the greatest state, not in terms of winning success. And actually, I shouldn't even put the blame on Kalen DeBoer. Apologies to Coach DeBoer and in its entirety, but Washington in and of itself is just a depleted roster. You have Michael Penix gone, that wide receiver room is gone, Dylan Johnson is gone, that defense is shredded. So Jedd Fisch definitely does have a little bit of work to do to build this program back up, but I still think it's a great fit for this Washington program, and he will find success once Washington can find their rhythm in Big Ten play. We'll go down to the bottom of the screen, and let's talk about Mike Elko, another very surprise candidate here with Duke. And he is going to go to a university that, yet again, he is familiar with. He was a former Notre Dame and Texas A&M defensive coordinator, only one season for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish in 2017 before bouncing over to the Aggies in 2018 through 2021 before taking the head coaching job at Duke. Went 16-9. Duke had a massive season in 2022. Didn't have as big of a season last year, that in part due to a lot of the injuries that Riley Leonard suffered, but Duke also kicked off that season last year with an upset victory over the Clemson Tigers. So a very, very good performance all around from Mike Elko in his head coaching debut the past two seasons with the Duke Blue Devils. Now he comes over for a Texas A&M program that, look, I love the fit, and Mike Elko is going to start winning at Texas A&M really fast. The only question I have is how much can he start winning? His resources and his facilities are going to improve tenfold from that to from Duke to Texas A&M in terms of the football facilities. He's coming into a program and coming into a fan base with very high expectations, and they were very disappointed by the last guy that walked through this program. So can Mike Elko live up to the hype? It's the only thing I'm watching for, but I love the fit. I think he'll find some good success. Mike Elko going over from Duke to Texas A&M. Here is Curt Cignetti all the way down at the bottom of the screen, a 52-9 record at James Madison, including winning an FCS title in 2019 and helping James Madison be one of the most successful FCS to FBS jumps in probably ever. He is going to go take on a Big Ten job in the Indiana Hoosiers. I think this is a great fit for Indiana. Now, is it going to take time for Curt Cignetti to build? Yes, absolutely. This is a program that definitely has not been left off in the greatest state. Their best season going back in recent memory was that 2020 COVID year when they had Michael Penix, a healthy Michael Penix, at quarterback. You get Curt Cignetti transferring in a lot of his players, following him from James Madison over to the Indiana Hoosiers. I mean, the list of accolades speaks for itself when you take a look at what Curt Cignetti has done. He is just a phenomenal head coach. He grew James Madison to the program that it is today. And again, Bob Chesney, I think, going to take over that program really well. He comes into a really tricky situation here at Indiana. And again, kind of the same conversation we had with Jedd Fisch. It's that step up in competition, and it's a step up tenfold for Curt Cignetti coming into Indiana. Give him a little bit of time. I think he'll build Indiana into be a fairly successful program within the Big Ten Conference, Big Ten title contenders. Maybe not necessarily to that level, but he is going to find great success in the Indiana Hoosiers program, I do believe. So that's it for the Power Four. We'll move on here to talking about the group of five, where I have five more coaches that I do want to talk about. We'll start out, or four more coaches, I should say, that I think are great fits with this program and will find success. And that starts with Spencer Danielson. He stepped in after the Andy Avalos firing last year and also was a previous interim head coach after Brian Harsin left to go to the Auburn Tigers. He stepped in and helped this team, a Boise State team that looked like it was a lost season, sort of picked up the scraps, helped them to a Mountain West championship game. And look, he was a former co-defensive coordinator, turned into defensive coordinator at Boise State. He has a very, very talented roster, probably one of the most, if not the most talented roster in the Mountain West this season. I absolutely love this hire. Now, the only reason that it is not a slam dunk home run hire for me is I still do have some questions about, okay, how does he handle recruiting? How does he handle keeping the guys together? Because it's one thing to get in and rally a team, right? Now, trust me, I like Spencer Danielson as much as the next guy. I think he is going to be a really, really good fit, and he's going to do really well at this program, especially a great program like Boise State has been. This is definitely going to be an interesting situation to watch. Only reason that's not a home run slam dunk for me. This guy down here, we're going to move to the bottom now, and we're going to talk about a guy by the name of Scotty Walden. I do believe that it is that name. And look, if you haven't heard the name, I wouldn't necessarily be fully surprised. He's going to take over for Dana DeMel, who ended up, I believe, being fired by the UTEP Miners. And when you take a look at this guy and Scotty Walden, he is one of the best young minds in the entire game. A 26-14 record at Austin Peay, made the FCS first round last year, were ASUN champs in 2022, were UAC champs, which is an ASUN WAC sort of combined league in the FCS ranks, won that league in 2023. He was a former Southern Miss wide receiver coach and co-offensive coordinator, as well as a former Southern Miss interim head coach. So this is the guy, Scotty Walden, has the experience at the FCS level, is now going to get his shot in a group of five realm. I think Scotty Walden is going to perform really, really well. Now, again, great fit, will succeed. Only question I have is, yes, there is that jump in the competition. How does he adjust? How does he get better, right? And again, at a program like UTEP, you're not really going to prove yourself that much right away. However, put this guy on the national radar because I think Scotty Walden could be something really, really special. I think a lot of people are calling him the next Cliff Kingsbury, which if that tells you anything, he's a phenomenal offensive mind and can perform really, really highly down the line. I love Scotty Walden. We'll see what he does with the UTEP minor program. All right, we'll move on to talking about Sean Lewis. You all know him as the Colorado offensive coordinator from last year under Coach Prime. He was also a former co-offensive coordinator at Syracuse and Bowling Green. However, I most know him for his success with the Kent State Golden Flashes, especially helping lead that team to an appearance in the Mid-American Conference championship game. Now, his career overall record may not speak volumes, as again, hard to win at a program like Kent in the Mid-American Conference, especially with how unpredictable that conference is. But I do really like this hire. He comes over from Colorado again from his offensive coordinating duties. He will be the head coach of San Diego State. Brady Hoke stepped into retirement, so Sean Lewis will step into the Mountain West Conference. How good of a fit is this? I think it's a fairly solid fit. Now, there may have to be a little bit of adjustment in terms of, hey, this is a guy that is mainly an offensive-minded guy, had some pretty good defenses at Kent State, but you're taking over for a guy in Brady Hoke that was physical, that was run-of-the-mill, ground and pound style guy, right? We are going to out-physicality you. That is Brady Hoke's mentality. That's just been San Diego State as a program really across all athletics. You could say that about the basketball team as well. But taking a look at the football program, either he is going to adjust to that defensive scheme, or more than likely, San Diego State fans are going to have to get used to a little more high-flying tempo with what Sean Lewis is going to bring. Still very excited to see what he does as the head coach. You knew he was going to get a head coaching position somewhere after this season, and it wound up being with the Aztecs of San Diego State. This is a very interesting one that we're about to talk about next. Pete Lembo. He is coming over from his position at South Carolina to go over and coach the Buffalo Bulls. This is going to be a very, very interesting one to watch. He has not been a head coach, Lembo hasn't, since 2015. Yet he boasts a 112-65 career record, most of that being in the FCS ranks. He's a two-time Patriot League champion, a two-time Patriot League a two-time League Coach of the Year, one with the Patriot League in 2001 and one in the Southern Conference in 2007. He won the Eddie Robinson Award, which is kind of like the top FCS head coach, won that award in 2001, was a Broyles Award nominee in 2019, and was a semifinalist in 2022. So this guy has the track record, he has the head coaching resume to be able to prove it. We'll see how he does at a program like Buffalo that, again, in the wild unpredictability that is the Mid-American Conference, I do expect Pete Lembo to perform fairly well. However, still a couple of questions. Again, hasn't been a head coach in almost a decade. So how does he step in? How does he adjust to being a head coach in this new era of college football? Definitely going to be a huge thing to watch. That's it for my kind of great fits, will succeeds. Now we're going to get into the guys that you start to really have some questions about. And we're actually going to start at the bottom of the screen here. We're back in Power 4 realm. Manny Diaz is coming over from his defensive coordinating duties at Penn State over to Duke. He will be replacing Mike Elko, who, as we talked about earlier in this video, is going on to Texas A&M. Now, a 21-15 record for his career is what he boasts. All of it with the Miami Hurricanes, and underperformed there. Again, that's a Miami program that always expects really, really big things. From 2019 to 2021, Manny Diaz consistently underperformed expectations from this Miami program. Now, he is a former defensive coordinator at 6 different schools, and one of those being the Penn State Nittany Lions that I just mentioned. Now, as a defensive coordinator, the guy is really, really good. He's a very, very good defensive mind, but again, with his track record being underperforming at Miami, he comes over to a program at Duke that definitely has a lot lesser expectations than what the Miami Hurricane fan base is going to put forth. Yet Duke just also saw probably their most successful 2-year run in quite some time. So Manny Diaz coming into a situation here at Duke, still some very good players on that roster, yet he never won his division at Miami, which was something that was expected of him several times over. We'll see if he can end up pushing Duke into an ACC championship game with the new look conference. I do not think that that'll be the case early on, as again, you got some questions to answer there, Manny. Are you going to be a guy that's going to step up, or is this a guy that, again, just proves that he continues to fall below expectations, which, again, is what he did the entire time with the Hurricanes? That will be something to watch. We'll go catty corner to that now, and let's talk about Fran Brown for a second. When I saw this hire, this was one of the more interesting hires I saw, yet it was one that I liked quite a bit at first. Doing in some more research, again, I knew this was going to be his first head coaching stint. He has a 0-0 career record, which means, guess what? Game 1 of the Syracuse Orange 2024 season is also game 1 of Fran Brown's head coaching tenure in its entirety. He is well known as a defensive back coach, very well known. He had 2 different stints at Temple. After his first stint at Temple, went over to Baylor, then back to Temple, was a DB coach at Rutgers for a couple of years, and then went over, of course, to Georgia, where he subsequently has won back-to-back national titles and has helped Georgia become one of the more feared secondaries in the nation. Now, that'll probably continue for the Bulldogs this year, and Syracuse usually has a very nice track record of pumping out defensive backs into the NFL. He was also a former NFL defensive back himself. He played with the Cincinnati Bengals, so he knows what it takes to be a defensive back, and I assure you he's going to be a very good defensive mind for this team. Okay, cool. What can he do on the offensive end? And I also know what a lot of you may be saying right out of the gate. Kirby Smart is the new era Nick Saban. Every coach that comes out of his tree is going to find success in some way or another. While that may be true, Fran Brown and one other guy that we have to talk about later is going to need to prove that, right? I still have confidence in Fran Brown, just not right away. I definitely still have some questions, as again, this is one of the more interesting and complicated hires to figure out, as I think Fran Brown can excel really, really well and get a lot of offers from some higher stakes programs other than Syracuse, or he could definitely underperform there as well. I definitely see 2 sides to the coin. I'm leaning more towards the former. However, again, still got some questions for Fran Brown entering Syracuse. Still think it's going to be a good fit and he'll find success, but some more questions than answers for me with Fran Brown. Kind of the same thing I'm thinking about with Bill O'Brien. Now, I know what a lot of you people may be saying out there. So Jeff Hafley leaves this Boston College program, and all of the talk around town as he entered a role with the Green Bay Packers was just how much he didn't like what the college game was becoming. Enter Bill O'Brien. He was supposed to be the Ohio State offensive coordinator before getting a call from Boston College saying, hey, do you want to be our head coach? And he jumped at the opportunity to do so. And honestly, I don't blame him. He doesn't enter the most favorable situation with Boston College, but it is still a fairly good situation. And hey, it's a region that he knows really, really well. You know Bill O'Brien mostly for the fact that he was a 52 and 48 record head coach with the Houston Texans, able to take the Texans with Deshaun Watson to their first playoffs in quite some time. But you also mainly know him for being on the staff with Bill Belichick from 2007 to 2011. He was on that staff and back again in 2023 as the offensive coordinator. He's also a former Alabama offensive coordinator under Nick Saban. So I know you have the sort of you have the Bill Belichick and Nick Saban. I mean, he's been on probably the best NFL head coach in history to the best college head coach in history staff. What more do you need to say about him? This is a great hire. I get the appeal. It's a guy who has NFL level experience, but I was not super impressed with any of those offenses that he ran at Bama. Obviously, you can go look back at the offense he ran at New England last year and saw how that didn't turn out so great. And even his stint at Penn State, while he did win the Maxwell Coach of the Year and Big Ten Coach of the Year in 2012, that was over a decade ago. This is a new age, a new era of college football. And while Bill O'Brien, I think, would have served as a pretty solid offensive coordinator back in college again, I'm not too sure that I'm going to find much to be excited about until I see it happen as a head coach at Boston College. The one thing he does have going for him, the fans in Boston know him very well, again, from his time in New England. So he does have that going for him. Still excited to see what he pumps out in terms of a football team from the Boston College Golden Eagles. And the last one we have to talk about here is the new face of the Arizona Wildcats, and that is Brent Brennan. A 34 and 48 career record, all of it with San Jose State, the Spartans, from 2017 to 2023. Now, in the shortened COVID year, San Jose State was one of the talks of the entire nation. They were Mountain West champs. Brent Brennan won Coach of the Year, and he just, sorry about that, dropped something on my desk. He just was overall a very, very hot commodity, a great storyline. San Jose State was able to keep him around and just really couldn't generate that success. Now, last year, if Boise State doesn't go on that run, and again, a guy we talked about earlier, and Spencer Danielson, doesn't coach that team to the heights that they inevitably reached, San Jose State was a team that was sitting right there as a team ready to get into the Mountain West Conference Championship game last year. However, as soon as that opening from Arizona came calling after Kalen DeBoer went to Bama and after Jed Fish went to Washington, it really only felt right that Brent Brennan was the guy to go over to Zona. There are a lot of things working for Brent Brennan. I love his passion. I love his energy. And from a lot of what I've read and heard, the players do like him. However, I am a little concerned about this jump in competition, especially now going over to the Big 12 Conference for the Arizona Wildcats. That being said, this is probably one of the better hires in the some questions category because of the situation he does walk into. Noah Fafita and Tyrone McMillan are still there, and this is a team in the Arizona Wildcats that can surprise and still is a contender to go win the Big 12 Conference. Can Brent Brennan prove that? I likely think that he can. I was very close to putting this in a great fit. He's going to find success. Little bit more questions for me than those that I had on the previous slide. Still think this is a pretty solid hire, but I also want to see it play out. I really, really want to see it play out because I have liked Brent Brennan for a long time and thought that he has deserved a sort of better job than San Jose State. No offense to any of the Spartan fans out there. He'll get his shot at Zona. It's time that he proves what he can do. We'll move into the group of five realm in the some questions. I have 5 of these hires. We'll roll through them here. Well, we'll move through them relatively quickly. Let's talk about the guy that is going to come in here. And, okay, let's actually start with the guy that's right below me here, Major Applewhite. He is a head coach that's, I should say a former offensive coordinator that's going to be the head coach now at South Alabama. And Kane Womack, I believe, went over and took a job with the South Carolina Gamecocks. So South Alabama will now be relying on Major Applewhite. He has been a head coach before. He was a head coach at Houston from 2016 to 2018 and helped Houston win the West Division in the American Athletic Conference. He also was a former Alabama offensive coordinator in year number 1 of Nick Saban, if that really tells you anything that has happened with him, and again, how highly he may be regarded by Nick Saban. He is also a former Texas co-offensive coordinator from 2011 to 2013, has spent a lot of the time bouncing around, found his role with South Alabama, and if you remember, not last year, but 2 years ago, I mean, this South Alabama offense was dangerous, and he coached a lot of very, very, very good players. So taking over a role here with the South Alabama Jaguars, I still like it. He has experience at a program like Houston that obviously now they're sitting in the Big 12 Conference, but still a very respectable program for a very, very, very long time here. I'm very excited to see what Major Applewhite has in store. Still a lot of questions for me and how he can handle this, but nonetheless, still like Major Applewhite as a coach heading into 2024. We'll see if he can still continue the success that Kane Womack had with the South Alabama Jaguars. Move all the way over to the left-hand side of your screen. Let's talk about Derek Mason, shall we? Now, Derek Mason is going to walk into, well, let's be honest, some very, very tough shoes to fill, as Rick Stockstill was a beloved figure all throughout the Tennessee program, and it's been a year since Derek Mason has been in the coaching gig. Mostly known for a defensive coordinator from Stanford from 2011 to 2013. Some of those really good Stanford teams. Was a defensive coordinator at Auburn in 2021, as well as Oklahoma State in 2022. Did not have a coaching job last year and will step into a head coaching role here with Middle Tennessee in Conference USA. Doesn't have the greatest track record, though. Now, albeit he did have it in one of the toughest jobs in the country in Vandy, and did have some pretty good years while he was at Vanderbilt from 2014 to 2020. He also does have NFL experience, was a former Vikings assistant defensive back coach. So while I still have some questions, again, is he motivated the coach? He hasn't been the head coach of a team in almost 4 years. And you enter a program like Middle Tennessee State, not necessarily in the greatest conference, and while, albeit this is a Middle Tennessee team that I think can perform highly above expectations with Derek Mason at the helm, I still got a lot more questions than answers for this guy. So we'll see if he can live up to the potential a lot of people around Middle Tennessee think he can, or again, if this is going to be one of those coaching hires that flops. I think it really could go either way. Excited to see what he can do with that program. All right, let's talk about the last guy that we have here on your screen, and this is a really, really interesting one. So, Choate comes over from the Texas Longhorns, and he's going to end up taking over the Nevada Wolfpack. He has a 28-22 career record, all of them with the Montana State Bobcats, and Jeff Choate did lead them to the FCS semifinals in 2019. Was a co-defensive coordinator and an inside linebacker coach for Texas from 2021 to 2023. Obviously, last year was a big part in helping this team to the college football playoff, as Texas's linebacker group was one of the more improved groups on that team, and maybe you could argue around the entire country. However, again, I'm not super in love with this hire. I think he can find success. I think he can be a really good fit here. It's just not a hire that I really love. It's just not a hire that's it's not flashy. It's not something that's going to grab you and say, "Oh wow, Jeff Choate's the new head coach of the University of Nevada." It's just not going to be one of those hires to me. I think he can find success, but he's also got a really tough job, as Nevada has sort of been driven into the ground over the past couple of seasons. And FCS semifinals back in 2019. It's been half a decade since that's happened. We'll see what Jeff Choate can do at his role with the University of Nevada. Got some more questions about a couple of other hires here. Let's talk about Jay Sawville for a second. This will be his first head coaching tenure, as he has to take over one of the most beloved figures across the college football landscape in recent memory, and that is Craig Bohl. Obviously known for his time there at North Dakota State, found a lot of success coming over, or I should say Craig Bohl found a lot of success coming over to Wyoming. Of course, they pulled off the upset against Texas Tech last year. Always been a competitive team in the Mountain West Conference, and Sawville has served as his defensive coordinator from 2020 to 2023. He was also a former staffer for Jerry Kill from 2001 to 2015, kind of followed him around everywhere. Believe was mainly his defensive coordinator as well. this is again not a hire that I just love. And it's also some really, really big shoes to fill. Now, Jay Sawville, again, great potential as a head coach. You've seen some of the defenses that he has run out on the field for the Wyoming Cowboys in recent history, especially over the past 2 or 3 seasons. Again, just not a coaching hire that I am in love with. Hopefully, Jay Sawville can prove me wrong as he will be taking over the Wyoming Cowboys. And a name that I know I am going to butcher, so I apologize profusely, Ken Niumatalolo, who has been known for his tenure at Navy. From 2007 to 2022, this guy was the face of the Army-Navy game. Took the tight end coaching job at UCLA last year and will be taking over for Brent Brennan at San Jose State. Again, was UCLA's acting tight end coach last season. He has helped Navy reach some incredible heights, was 3-time AAC West Division champions in 2015, 2016, and 2019, was 3-time AAC Coach of the Year in those exact same years. But the one question I do have for Coach Ken is his system. He is going to be going away from the triple option style and running a more sort of a more traditional look, shall I say. I think the defense is still going to be there. I think the defense is still going to perform at a high level. However, when I take a look here at Coach Ken, it's just about those system questions, right? Hasn't been a head coach in a year. How does he adjust from running the triple option RPO style offense that Navy ran to running a more traditional set with San Jose State? And especially, he's going to bring the physicality that you need to compete in the Mountain West. Still got some questions, though, about how he is going to run his new system. If you thought I had questions about those past 9 guys, wait until you hear my questions about the next 8 guys I want to talk about. Now, there is sort of an outlier here because I know it says that this is kind of the C to D realm. David Braun may very well be a C plus, maybe even a B minus higher because of what he did last year. After Pat Fitzgerald got fired for the scandal that is going on, David Braun jumped in as the interim head coach and posted an 8-5 record. Yes, helped Northwestern to what a lot of people, including myself, probably mistakenly, was one of the worst rosters in the entire country, and he turned them into a postseason team, thusly giving him Big Ten Coach of the Year, rightfully was earned last season. He's also a former NDSU defensive coordinator. Prove it, right? Just prove it again. Prove that you can do that for the second straight year. You probably, again, are not going to have that great of a roster, especially compared to the competition that is around Northwestern. And then when you take a look at this Northwestern program with what's entering, I mean, Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA, they are all coming in here to this conference. And Northwestern, again, has never been the power conference, and David Braun probably is never going to live up to what Pat Fitzgerald did. However, he may be able to get relatively close. I want him to prove it, right? It's one thing to sort of put a team on your back and go on a magical run to have a team rally behind a head coach. Can the head coach rally behind the team now? That's what I want to see out of David Braun. Still really excited to see what he does, but I want him to prove it. He's, again, kind of that outlier here. Everyone else I do have legitimate questions about, as he's also the only the only one with any sort of head coaching experience that you see on the screen right now. All 3 of these other guys are brand new, and let's start out with Deshaun Foster. First off, not a great situation at UCLA right now. Chip Kelly left the program to go be the offensive coordinator for Ohio State. They're also going to be entering a new landscape within the Big Ten Conference. A lot of transfers leaving. That's a depleted roster. And you move from a running back coach, not even an offensive or defensive coordinator, you move from the running back coach to being the head coach now. Definitely a little bit of a weird transition. He now does have NFL experience, not necessarily as a coach, but as a player. He was a former UCLA running back, so he does know the program, and he was a running back for the Carolina Panthers from 2002 to 2007. So he does know the game. That much we do know. Again, much like what I said with David Braun, prove it. Prove that you can be in that head coaching role, it's just going to be a very, very tough job to fill because when you take a look at what Deshaun Foster is walking into, it's one of the best conferences in the country with probably one of the worst situations in the country right now at UCLA, given everything that has happened within that program. Maybe he can surprise me, but I got a lot of questions for him. He's got to prove himself. So Deshaun Foster sitting in this category, as is Jeff Lebby, the former UCF and Oklahoma offensive coordinator, former Ole Miss offensive coordinator there as well, who is coming over to the Mississippi State Bulldogs to replace Zach Arnett. This one is a weird one, not only to me, but to a lot of people. I just don't necessarily see this one as a super fantastic hire. We know the offense that Jeff Lebby can run. But you take a look at Mississippi State, Will Rogers has went over to the Washington Huskies, and we'll see, right? We'll see what Jeff Lebby is able to do. Again, very, very tough conference in the SEC, which he has been in before. Again, was at Ole Miss from 2020 to 2021, but I just see this as a very, very weird hire. I don't think it's the hire that Mississippi State needed to make. I kind of don't think it's the hire they wanted to make. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I just don't see this as a necessarily great hire. Hey, maybe Jeff Lebby can prove me wrong. I have a lot of questions about Trent Bray here as well. Coming over from the defensive coordinator spot to the head coach. Again, not an unprecedented move by any means. And look at what happened with the last head coach that ran through that program. Jonathan Smith was one of my home run hires when he went over to the Michigan State Spartans. And it's not necessarily me doubting Trent Bray more than it's doubting the situation that he's in because it's unprecedented. You had a conference sort of just collapse under the weight of, well, really itself and the changing landscape of college football. But you take a look at Trent Bray here, who has been a DC for only 2 years, mainly known as a linebacker coach. Hey, was the linebacker coach of the Cal Redwoods, then went over to Arizona State, did 2 different stints at Oregon State, and in between that was Mike Riley's linebacker coach at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln from 2015 to 2017. We know how good Nebraska's linebackers usually are. So when you take a look at just but again, back to the situation that he's in. It's just unprecedented. You had a conference collapse under the weight of the changing landscape of college football. Oregon State was one of the 2 programs from the fallen Pac-12 that didn't find a home, and they will be playing independent FBS football while also moving on from their head coach and a lot of very talented players. So you have a sort of depleted fan base, a depleted roster, a depleted front office, really, for the most part, I guess, if you could call it that. It's just an unprecedented situation here, and filling in for a guy as talented as Jonathan Smith is just not going to be easy. A lot of reason to have doubts about Trent Bray. However, I do have confidence. I think he'll be a fairly solid coach, but again, prove it, right? And it's not only prove your ability as a head coach, it's just a very tough situation to be able to navigate for Trent Bray. That's all my thoughts on the Power 4 head coaches. We'll wrap up my thoughts with the group of 5 head coaches now, and just what felt like another very odd hire to me. Gerard Parker is going to come over from his offensive coordinator position at Notre Dame last year to take over for John Summerall and Troy. Again, not necessarily a massive downgrade from John Summerall, but considering I put him as a home run hire from him going from Troy over to Tulane, you can connect the dots yourself there on that one. And he was an interim head coach at one point before. He was an interim head coach at a high major program for the Purdue Boilermakers in 2016. Only downside is he went 0-6. Now, did he have the most talented roster? No, not at all. But you take a look at some of the offenses that he's ran. He's been a wide receiver coach at 5 different schools and is a former offensive coordinator with West Virginia from 2020 to 2021 and Notre Dame last season. That Notre Dame offense, while it was good at times, had a lot of very good pieces, was not over the moon fantastic, and those West Virginia offenses were nothing really special either. I just really don't get this hire. I don't like this hire. And not only that, I see it as a pretty massive downgrade for the Troy Trojans. I know I said earlier I don't see it as that big of a downgrade, but considering where I have John Summerall ranked in my head coaching tier list, Gerard Parker definitely is not close to them. Prove it, right? Prove that you can get out and change that 0-6 record. Troy is still a program that's going to bring in some pretty talented players as they do recruit around that southern region, being a program in Alabama. We'll see what happens with that one. We'll move on over to, again, just a hire that I plain don't like, just don't like at all, and that is Tony Sanchez. He will be taking over for Jerry Kill, who I believe has retired, although I'm sure those of you I'm sure those of you can correct me in the comment section down below if that in fact is wrong. But he's the former New Mexico State wide receiver coach that'll be taking over head coaching duties. Does boast a 20-40 career record, all of that with UNLV, and all of that after a very, very, very successful stint in high school. Went 120-26 as a head coach in high school, most notably for Bishop Gorman, who is one of the premier high schools across the entire country, not only in terms of football, but producing athletic talent, period. He won 6, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Nevada Class 4A high school state titles, and was USA Today High School Coach of the Year in 2014. You understandably know now why he got a look with the UNLV Rebels, and it just didn't really work. His high school tactics didn't transfer over to the next level. UNLV, while again, he knew the area, he knew Nevada, and he brought a lot of the kids from Bishop Gorman in with him. It was just not a great fit. And I don't see this being a great fit either with New Mexico State. I really just don't. Prove me wrong, please, Tony Sanchez, because I honestly just don't have a lot of faith in this head coaching move. We'll take a look now on over to Bryant Vincent, who's going to be the new head coach at ULM, who, again, arguably is entering one of the worst situations in the entire country. However, he has been a head coach before. Technically was the interim head coach at UAB in 2022, boasted a 7-6 record, but mainly known for his time in high school. Was a 49-16 overall record head coach in high school. That was from 2006 to 2010. Is also a former offensive coordinator, most notably for his time at UAB from 2012 to 2014 and 2018 to 2021. Was an offensive coordinator at South Alabama there as well, before last year being the offensive coordinator at New Mexico. One of the big reasons why that program definitely saw a jump in competition last year. But again, it's not that I'm not confident in Brian Vincent. Well, okay, I guess part of it may very well be that. Sorry, Bryant. I'm just not too confident he can succeed in this job. ULM did have the one season a couple years ago where they went 6-6, I believe made a bowl game, and there were definitely rising expectations in that program, and that program has fallen back down to where they've been for the majority of their FBS tenure. I don't know if Brian Vincent can have quite the level of success. I just don't think he's set up very well to succeed at all. I don't really like it. Bryant Vincent is going to be the next head coach at University of Louisiana Monroe. I really do hope he proves me wrong, because I like Bryant Vincent as a guy, and I think he can be a pretty solid head coach. He proved that with the UAB Blazers. He's just not walking into a good situation at all. And this last one here is one of the last coaching hires to have actually been made, and another Georgia staffer is going to get his shot to be a head coach. Dell McGee, who was the running back coach for the Georgia Bulldogs from 2016 to 2023. He also served as the interim head coach for Georgia Southern, as well as the running back coach in 2014 and 2015. Again, the interim head coach in 2015, where he was the interim head coach of the bowl game, to which he won. He's also a former NFL running back for the Cardinals and Lions. He really knows his stuff when it comes to the running back room, and he has produced some of the best running backs that even you see in the NFL at Georgia. That being said, again, maybe not the best situation to walk into, as Sean Elliott just kind of walked away from this program. He's going to go get a job on a different staff. It's just a very abrupt departure from that previous head coach. It's McGee's first tried and true head coaching job, and given all of the circumstances, there's a lot pushing against him. Again, much like Fran Brown, I am rooting for him because, well, you probably know what the storyline would be. Kirby Smart, the new age Nick Saban. Look at all the guys that are coming from his tree, having this great run of success. and everything nice like that. But again, just with the situation he is walking into, not super confident in what Del McGee is going to be able to provide with Georgia State, which, by the way, has been a program that's been sneaky competitive in the Sun Belt for a very long time. I am just not over the moon confident in what Del McGee brings into that program given the circumstances. Okay, I've taken almost an hour of your time now. So, for those of you that sat and listened to me ramble on about my thoughts on the coaching hires, thank you so much. If you want to see more of my thoughts, I'll be doing some opinions on what's happening around the transfer portal, at least what happened in this past cycle, and what could potentially happen in the spring cycle as well. I'll get out of here. I won't waste any more of your time. Thank you so much for watching this video. Again, if you enjoyed it, subscribe, like, comment, share. Do anything else you can do to help support the channel. And remember, as always, to play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see all of you guys in the next video. We'll talk about the transfer portal next. Oh, also watch out for my UFL Week 2 power rankings and predictions. That'll come out tomorrow. Goodbye.